I think with the Stop the Violence movement, there was quite a bit of things happening in New York City, and I'm not quite sure at that point in time, KRS-One's, it wasn't until later where he made, songs about the police.
Right.
Prior to that, it was about us killing one another.
Right.
And us committing atrocities on one another in areas that I think one of you mentioned, kids having to go now to other schools that are not in their neighborhood. And for us, a lot of the violence was happening in central places where other boroughs would come in from New York City. And unfortunately, KRS-One lost Scott LaRock. I mean, we all lost him, but that was his brother, his mentor, and somewhat like his father.
Right.
And so that was the impetus to that particular movement. And I think everyone involved at that point was sort of relieved that someone had taken the reins and said, it's about time that we address this. Whether or not it had an impact on the community during that time, I cannot say. I don't know the numbers, the statistics of what went down or what went up, but I can say that I hear on a continuous basis that today there needs to be a new Stop the Violence movement, which for me means that it needs to be this generation, because they have the ears and eyes of all, and can heavily influence communities around the world, not just this nation, but around the world, because violence is happening everywhere. Yeah. Well, what's crazy is during that time, we didn't glorify drugs.
Right.
It was like, this is a problem. You want to stay away from this.
Right.
And it wasn't until later where it becomes very popular to smoke, to drink, to pop ecstasy, to pop all of these, weird man-made scenarios. But I thought what was interesting, what you said about the East and the West and the difference, is the East Coast never thought for one moment to call a woman out of her name, to call her a bitch.
Right.
Like, that was unheard of.
Yeah.
They held their women in high esteem. And it wasn't until NWA and some of the West Coast rappers, and that's the way they talked to their women and about their women. And not all of them, but a great deal of them, and enough of them to influence rappers on this coast, because I don't think it was until Biggie, really, that we begin to see and feel the change of how we're treated as women. And I know we're getting a little bit away from the violence, but to me it's all wrapped around.
I think it's absolutely connected.
Yeah, it's all wrapped around.
And I think that really what I want you to speak to, if you can, is what is the significance and the effectiveness that you see in the work that you do as when you bring that hip hop presence, like how does that add to the shift? Like, we saw hip hop inserted into campaigns. You've done some work with Rock the Vote. Like, do you think that is how can you measure the effectiveness?
I think it's effective. First off, kids just want to know that you're willing to communicate with them. So a song that can do a bit of damage. I'm sorry. A song that can do a bit of damage through people just hearing it is way different from someone coming into the community from the hip hop world and actually speaking to them.
Right.
So and then at that point they feel they're worth something. Okay, someone is talking to me about something that I haven't heard it delivered to me in this way from a hip hop artist. And so then the wheels begin to churn and they begin to change their mind about how they look at violence, or how, as a young girl, she should be spoken to, or a young boy, how he should speak to other people. So I think hip-hop by far is a strong a strong way in which to communicate to these kids what it is that needs to happen next.
Right.
But it has to come from some knowledgeable hip-hop artists.
Right. Now, one of the,
that was a segue.
Yeah, okay. I just want to ask you one last thing. One of the things that I often hear from people who aren't in hip-hop is how can hip-hop have this positive effect when so much of the lyrics that people are hearing on the radio is this negativity. We just recently had this big uproar over Rick Ross and the rape lyric. So like, how do you feel about that question? How can hip hop have an effect positively when it's seen as something that is negative?
Well, first off, there's all different types of hip hop, right? And so what is being pushed and promoted in mainstream media is a different type of hip hop. It's a hip hop I'd rather not be associated with.
Right.
However, there is a hip hop that exists that is that's the main goal of it is to educate our younger generation.
Right.
And speaking directly to them.
Right.
However, they have to feel as though they need to find it. See, I come from a hip-hop where I found the hip-hop that satiated me, whereas the hip-hop that exists on mainstream is just being pushed and promoted and somewhat brainwashing our children, you know, that they hear the same records over and over again on radio, and most of what it is that would feed them and nourish them exists in an underworld where they have to go find it.
But just to touch on that, we have the power, and I think sometimes we operate from a position as if we don't have the power. We do, and we just talked about. He just mentioned Rick Ross, and when Rick Ross just said that, you know, he made a rap where he described a rape happening. You know, people pushed back. You know what I'm saying? People began to, you know, so Reebok just dropped him. Right. You know what I'm saying? The song, his verses off the song, he just issued like finally an apology where he admitted what he did. Right. But that came because we as a community said we're not going to allow that, and that's not acceptable. And I'm getting hopeful. Because I think that, you know, once, like my brother said, now once we identify that education is a problem and that the school system is insufficient, then it's up to the educated ones in the community to begin to find a way. And if we got to go to these young people and be under a tree or in somebody's living room, you know what I'm saying? Because what we can't do is wait. So when they closed, you know, Chicago, 54 schools closed. Right. They said that affects 80 after-school programs. You know, 9 out of 10 of those students are people of color, students of color. But, you know, my one friend came from Chicago, and he said, you know what? It might be a blessing in disguise because now it makes us. It forces us to begin to educate our own children. And if we can begin to do that, and so I always say, if the children are uneducated, it's the fault of the educated ones in the community not making time and not passing down. Don't blame the child for what the child doesn't know. So I'm encouraged. I mean, I'm not from Dayton, you know what I'm saying, but I'm encouraged by just listening to the resources that y'all have here. Like and you know what I'm saying? And if there's no foundation of somebody that's willing to invest in that, then what we got to do is like we did back in the day. Let's take our nickels and dimes, or everybody put $1 on the table, you know what I'm saying, and we invest in those individuals that are going to do right by us in our community.
I want you to talk about your activism work in Pittsburgh. What made you and Paradise start One Hood?
Well, it was actually 2 incidences. The first was in Pittsburgh, we have what's considered kind of the worst neighborhood in Pittsburgh is a neighborhood called Homewood. So in this neighborhood, Homewood, it was 6 shootings in a 21-hour period. And the last 2 people were shot was a 3- and a 4-year-old girl. And at that point, you know, we felt like, and a lot of times what happens when something like that happens in our community is like we'll call a press conference or we'll call a meeting. And, you know, brother spoke to it, like, a lot of times those people who we really need to have this conversation with, they're not coming to no press conference or meeting.
Right.
So what we did was, instead of doing that, and One Hood is a coalition made up of, you know, a group of, like, Muslims, Christians, black nationalists, political people, and was really all of us were kind of, we kind of had in common was like we're part of the hip-hop generation. And so what we did was we called on our coalition. We took about 30 to 40 men and we walked the streets at night. And when we started walking the streets, like, the response to the community was so great. It was to the point where, you know, women were like sending they like significant others like out, like, hold on, you go down and talk to them dudes. You know, because they saw it, and, you know, children were like, you know, so, I mean, we got such a reaction that we started to do that on a weekly basis. You know what I'm saying? Not just in Homewood, in different communities, because we felt like, you know, if we don't show that we care, and our message was, you know, because it was like 30 of us, so, you know, we hit some corners, and some of the brothers that were there kind of were like, you know, like, what are y'all coming to do? And we were like, we're here to say we love you, we care about you, we care whether you live or die. And this is that conversation that we were talking about that oftentimes we don't have with our young people. Like, we care. We have resources that can get you, you know, if you would like to change your lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? Instead of waiting for them, we going to wait for them all day to come to the church, come to the mosque, come to the meeting. They're not coming. We got to go to them. Like, if we love them or care about them, this is what we have to do. The second incident was we had a police officer in Pittsburgh point a gun at a 7-year-old girl and said he was going to blow her brains out. And what happened was, instead of going to the driver's side, he came to the passenger side. He pulled a woman over who was on her way to her Little League football game. And when he came to the passenger side, the little girl was in the passenger seat and he had his gun drawn. So the little girl sees the gun. She tries to get out of the seat belt because she's afraid. And he's like, tell this little girl to stop moving. She doesn't stop moving. I'm going to blow her brains out. And there were 5 witnesses. And, you know, and so what happened in that situation was they charged the mom with disorderly conduct because she's screaming for Jesus, because she's thinking like her daughter's about to get killed. So she's, you know, almost at a hysterical level. So we began to rally the community around that issue, around, you know, protecting our community, protecting our children. So the charges of disorderly conduct were dropped against her, but the police officer was not, you know, basically, the judge actually said he did not believe, despite the witnesses, that this officer did that. He said he drew his gun and he pointed it at the ground, which I don't know why you would do that. Like, why would the ground's not, you know. So 6 months later, that same officer ended up killing a mentally disturbed man. You know what I'm saying? But it was really these 2 incidences that caused us, that galvanized us to start One Hood and to go out in the community. Now, we started the Media Academy because what we began to realize was that we can't always be reactionary, you know, and sometimes you get stuck into this, like, something happens, you react, something happens, you rally, something happens, and it's like, so you're always like running to the next big thing, right, fire, you trying to, so we said, well, we need to be proactive, and we saw, you know, how powerful hip-hop is as a draw, as a tool. So in Pittsburgh, they did this study of how black men are portrayed in the media, and the study said that 96% of the time that they portrayed us in the media as crime or sports.
And that was a Heinz Foundation.
Yeah, the Heinz Foundation,
right.
and the Pew Center. So we went to the Heinz Foundation and said, you know, we've had success, like you said, independently creating our own media and our own hip hop. We can teach young people, one, to be media literate, because a lot of the images, like we just talked about, that are being presented, you know, in mainstream hip hop to our young people are really there to sell products. And I want you to understand, like, because sometimes I think we put the blame on the artist and we leave out the corporate interests. Right. So an artist like myself that does, you know, I guess you say positive or conscious and intelligent lyrics, the record industry has told me we can't market you. We don't know how to market you, you know what I'm saying? But if I was talking about, but then give an artist like Chief Keef $6 million. You know, and who's talking about, you know, the reality of what happens in Chicago. I'm from that neighborhood in Chicago originally. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, glorifying crime, violence, you know, drug use, drug abuse as a 16-year-old that's really trying to respond to the oppression that he's under. So now if I'm a rapper, what am I going to talk about? You know what I'm saying? So you have you know, Rick Ross is college educated. Lil Wayne is college educated. 2 Chainz has a college degree. You know what I'm saying? But if they begin to rap intelligently, they're not going to get the $10 million investment. They're not going to get the marketing budget. They're not going to get the look on BET and MTV, which is owned by Viacom, which is another corporation.
Right.
So it's corporate interests that are intent on shaping, especially young black men, in a certain light. Yeah. So we said, okay, well, first we have to get our young people to understand that. You know what I'm saying? And it's really, you know, to kind of feed the prison industrial complex. Yeah. And then also that we can create our own media. So if I don't like how I'm being portrayed on MTV and BET, you mentioned Kathy Cohen and the Black Youth Project. Right. They did a study and they asked young people, and it was 80 to 90% of young people did not like the images that how they were being portrayed in popular hip hop culture. Think about that. And so now we have cameras, we have YouTube, we have Facebook, like we can tell our own story. And we can tell a truer story about how we're portrayed. And so that was the idea about the Media Academy, and we, you know, we really look at, and I'll end with this. A lot of times we get upset at like what young people are rapping about, you know what I'm saying? Well, they're only going to rap about what they know. Like if we're not actively involved in teaching them, giving them books, giving them, this is what the hip hop in the 80s and 90s did for me. Right. They were telling me like, read this book. Absolutely. You know, listen to this person. You know what I'm saying? This is somebody that you should check out. And so I started reading and getting into my own consciousness because of what hip hop was telling me. But if we don't go to our young people and say, here's a book that you should read. You know, in our Media Academy, we give the ISIS papers, you know, by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. It's my understanding that you can't really understand and dissect media without understanding white supremacy and its effect on our mind. You know, so we're able, that's what we do. And so what we see is when we give them that conscience, we're really trying to make the next generation of conscious artists. We're intentionally the next generation of thought leaders. But in order to do that, we have to make an investment in the young people. Sir. And if they see schools closing, they're like, well, they ain't trying to invest in my education. Right. If they see, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, the relationship with the police is very, you know, it's just like you said, confrontational and not a loving relationship. Right. Oh, that's not an investment. Well, but I can go, you know, there might be some people on the block that are willing to invest in me. Right. That are willing to give me money to do. That's just natural. Yes. You're going to go where you think you're wanted and loved. You see what I'm saying? Right. And so we have to begin to create environments for our children to show that you're wanted and loved, and that we're going to invest our money, time, and resources in you because we really believe you're our future. Okay. I did an interview with Rhymefest a couple of weeks ago in Ebony. Right. And one of the things he said is what you're saying, but I think he added another layer to it in terms of the relationship between the corporations beyond the music industry corporations and what's happening in terms of hip hop. And he talked about Chief Keef getting this $6 million advance for a record deal, and he said that the interesting thing about this to him was Chief Keef didn't have a track record of selling any records. And now one of the things in the music industry or any business, or you can go to a foundation. If you don't have a track record of doing anything, they're not funding you. Right. So Rhymefest thought it was interesting that here is a guy who has no track record. And so he said that he felt it was basically Chief Keef was a good, well, he said that Interscope gave him the deal. Interscope is owned by GE. And that this was a good promotion for the business that GE is in, which includes the private prison industry. Yes. So he talked about these relationships. So I thought that was really interesting. I want to ask you a follow-up question, and then we're going to get the Chief Bill into the conversation. But I wanted to ask you, and I think this is really important. You guys work with the police, in in some of the programs you do. You work with foundations. Yes. You've been in the August Wilson Cultural Center. I want you to talk real honestly about the successes, or what I would call the triumphs, and really the pitfalls. When somebody is trying to say, you know what, I want to change my community, I want to be involved, I'm going to take a proactive stance. Like, what are some of the problems that you've encountered trying to do this work? Well, the first thing is, and I would encourage, like, if anybody, a good friend of mine is founder of Occupy the Hood. His name is Malik Rasan. And his new slogan, y'all know, his new slogan is do some ish. Do something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when we started One Hood, like our idea wasn't to get to become a nonprofit and get funding. Like that wasn't in our mind.
Right.
We just wanted to go out and do something. So we went out and started to do things in the community, like with just on our own, volunteering with no budget. And how we got the relationship with the foundations is they saw us
Right.
always in the community, always working with our young people and having success with no budget.
Right.
So then they began to say, well, man, is there a way, can we talk to y'all? Can we, because they were giving money to a lot of non-for-profits and they weren't getting any results. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I would just encourage you, if you have an idea or something you want to do, don't wait to like write a grant, like just start doing it. You know what I'm saying? Start getting those results. You know what I'm saying? That'd be the first thing. Thank you. Secondly, you know, once we begin to have success in the community, you know, the police said they wanted to meet with us. You know what I'm saying? They said, well, we would like to meet with you all. And we said, sure. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I mean, we didn't have any issue with that. And they basically said, okay, well, we would like you all to help us help the community cooperate more with the police. We said, okay, that's fine. What we would like you to do is help, you know, compel officers to testify against other officers or to point out other officers when they do crimes in our community. You know, the Malcolm X grassroots movement did a report in 2012 that basically said every 36 hours a black person is killed by the police, somebody saying a security guard or something to that effect. One every 36 hours. If you say, you know what, our officers made a mistake, you know what I'm saying? We were in the wrong. What can we do to repair this relationship? Now that's something that's like, now we can genuinely talk now. You know, now we can say, you know, we can have forgiveness and reconciliation and atonement, but that's what we don't see. Right. We don't see this admission of unless it's on videotape, and then even then sometimes. If it's on videotape, right. And it's never like an admission of, you know what, we did make a mistake. How can we repair this community relationship? It's more so, no, we didn't do anything. We're covered down on one another. You know what I'm saying? If an officer, you know, they always were talking to us like, you know, what's up with this stop snitching? And we would always be like, well, I mean, come on, the blue wall of silence, like, you know, like, there's no, cops don't talk about one another. And that's you know, looked at if a cop testifies against one another, he's ostracized. So why would you talk about our community doing that if that's a practice that you do? You know what I'm saying? And so that's, to me, you know, the kind of the wall we hit.
Right.
And it's upsetting because, you know, in Pittsburgh we had a black police chief, and he was a good person. You know what I'm saying? He was a good man, but the system around him.
Right.
And this is what we had a problem with. And so, like I said, a lot of times when you begin to get up into those systems, you know, and it's like, you know, now I'm a target or I'm a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to have a relationship based on truth, justice, and fairness. You know what I'm saying? I don't hate somebody that's, you know, that's a police officer. Like that would be ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the job that you take. You know what I'm saying? Or an individual person. All I want to see is a more peaceful, loving, less violent relationship
right.
between us and something where we can have that conversation. Like you said, where we can really talk. And have a genuine conversation. If we don't have that, then it's always going to be something adversarial. And then we'll, you know, so you always find yourself saying like, you know, another incident happens. Another young,
right.
You know, I was just in
right.
Oakland, California. And I'll end with this. 3 young black men were outside of a restaurant. A call comes on the radio that 3 young black men robbed somebody. These young men weren't doing anything wrong. One of them gets shot in the face by a police officer. He's unarmed. You know what I'm saying? And so now this is a big thing. Thankfully, he lived. You know what I'm saying? But now, if we don't, if the process isn't to take that officer at least off the street and really begin to say, like, if somebody is doing something like this, he shouldn't be, you know, a part of it. I feel like the people who should be against police brutality most is the police. Because it's like, it makes your job harder and it makes you look bad. But if those that brutalize or do things like that are protected, you know what I'm saying, or covered down for, or just transferred, and sometimes promoted, then what does that say to us? Right. And then when you come and say you want a real relationship, I would say that's not truthful. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's start it on truth, let's start on justice, let's start on fairness, and now I think we can really have. So this is a good opportunity. You know what I'm saying? To have the chief here, and the fact that you came, I commend you for coming.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But so this could be a bright beginning, and it could lead to a real relationship, and let Dayton be the leader in how this powerful relationship could work. You know what I'm saying? In terms of it being based on truth, justice, and fairness.
This is my message. This is the tool that I use as a change agent here in the United States of America. So, here we go. My state of mind is militant, so every time I spat around is diligent. This is for all my people that's truly listening. Lower income Section 8 welfare recipients. This is how we've been positioning. And more than half of us have spent a third of our lives in imprisonment. We are underpaid and overworked for big company dividends. Is this the future we've been envisioning? So whether you vote Democratic or Republican, either way we losing this government that was created by your crooked covenant. And every time my rhymes enlighten minds, I'm loving it till the day the slugs are hit. Because when you live in poverty, that's when the love is rich. So can you see why we die, we lie, then we cry? The truth is something that I cannot deny. This lyrical poetry is my reply. This is not a game where you can press reset or retry. No denomination, but to the creators to whom I rely. Because too much of religion has been dictated by man. So I've vindicated my stance, and every time I've spoken, I've vindicated the plan. And I ain't trying to read your mind or redesign. I'm just trying to make you think and redefine so you can read between the lines. So listen to how I diminish the rhymes every time I finish a line. Because if God sends a signal, can we distinguish the signs? It's similar to Babylon, the way we live in this time. Ignorance controls the ghetto, plus the prison combined only leaves us missing in time. But I admire those who put themselves in a position to find the wisdom divine. So every time I'm spitting a rhyme, my mission designed to open up your eyes even when your vision is blind. And never will my position resign. See, my commissions align with people in the hood who have created a coalition to grind. It's similar to Shorty in the corner that be gripping a 9 while the crackhead mother is sniffing a dime. You see, and then they say we living in a dying city, but ain't nobody crying pity. Nobody showing sympathy and empathy for those who cry out. And if we ain't financially literate, what the hell good is a buyout? We just gonna spend and spend until eventually the money dies out. And when the economical supply's out, corporate America moves to the south of the border just a little fast. While up here, they done obliterated an entire middle class. And all I can see is the hundreds and thousands of faces that are frowning because they got laid off, or the top dogs are getting paid off. They in the country club trying to play golf. My people's just scrambling to get their rent paid off. When you're feeding your kids with no job, ain't no days off. When there's this many unemployed, that's when the guns deploy and the bullets are spray off. And the chest of a victim is where the letter stay. But he don't want to go to the hospital because he ain't got no Medicaid. On top of that, grandmom's is dying because she can't afford a prescription. Moms wants to go to work, but the car needs a new transmission. Her daughter wants to go to college, but can't afford the tuition. Her brother filling out apps due to felonies, job marketing, trying to listen. Pops got hurt in the job. A year later, they take away his pension. More children are deemed ADD, so they really believe that they can't pay attention. Most don't want to work for fear of losing their government assistance. Aunties crying in the kitchen because their daughter's missing, and they don't even have the kidnapper's description. Uncle scratching scabs due to his addiction. Goddaughter's having suicidal intentions. Cousin dies from friendly fire on an Iraqi mission. Godson is rebelling, getting tired of these conditions, while grandmoms is still upstairs praying for redemption. You see the ills of the world, they can hit you in an instant. Now one person standing here today is an exemption. You can let the stress of this world devour you, or you can let the struggle with adversity empower you. It all depends on your person, so tell me, how are you? Because I'm a rebel with a cause, I'm a renegade, but I gotta chill out to make sure that the rent is paid. I'm finding it hard to walk up on this righteous path. Working 40 hours in a week just to keep up with the light and gas. I say forget it all when I light the hash. I sit back and take a look at life and laugh. Right in my path as I explain to you about this life that I have. Because working that minimum wage only mean my people want to live in the rage. And if I react the way I really want to it, then I live in a cage. But you tell me what's worth working. When it's your stomach, this the worst hurting. And while they out here jerking and swag surfing, I'm on this earth searching for something real. But it feels like this curse worsens. Because I love people with God, but I can't stand me a church person. All blessed due to the Most High, even though I spit it in first person. And I flow like a monster, you can call me the Leviathan. They try to throw me in the dirt, I'm like, brother, you gonna have to try again. Head up high, chest out, even in the middle of the lion's den. I done made it up out of a crazy urban environment. Now I'm back with my brother and smoking good while drinking on some Heinekens. This fire's what I provide again to get you high again, to keep your eyes open wide again. Cause while gas is going up and down like it's a stock option, we stuck in the hood thinking we ain't got options. So my peoples, My peoples get the rock chopping it, then they get the Glock popping it. Now they dodging bullets like they pop blocking it. Media selling us bullshit and we steadily copping it. If it ain't that, it's the concerted Percocet Klonopins or we bombing them Oxycontinins. Now see the companies sell drugs that kill people, $1 million profiting. Hustlers sell drugs that kill people, $1 million bell when they locking him. They get mad when we grind because it don't cut it when you clocking out and clocking in. But the FDA approves these pharmaceutical companies because they invest stock in them, knowing that these pills are kill, but ain't nobody putting a stop to them. And nowadays, courtship is determined by if your sex right. No need for human interactions. You can build relationships over these social websites, and it don't stop there. It don't stop there. The insanity grows in the 13 bloodline family knows while we ain't reaching for our dreams because he's too busy watching reality shows. Or with Facebook and Twittering until the batteries low. Now you gotta borrow somebody else's charger. Your situation's getting harder. Situation's getting harder. You can't reach your destination because you ain't got no GPS. And we're being raised by PBS, ABC, NBC, CBS, BET, CNN, TNT, TBS. But none of them care if we be stressed. You can't even buy a new house or a new car if you got low credit. Hey, drink all night, go to work next morning with a swole headache. I done did crazy things in life, but I don't regret it. I just keeps it copacetic. I just happen to be a poet that is so poetic. I take this modern day struggle and our flow's kinetic. When my voice resonates, my soul's embedded. I got success in my path. I just have to go and get it. Because a man without ambition is so pathetic. See? This is why I spit with aggression with no question, never the softest. Because while they're making executive decisions from their office, I'm in the fields to tussle. Every day I have to deal and hustle. I don't want you to hear a poem, I want you to feel the struggle. Thank you.
We just want to say that we are really excited to be here today. This is an initiative, Speak, Be Heard, Be Considered, that was started by a number of folks in the community almost 2 years ago.
We've been asked to talk about the gun violence situation here and nationally facing young people, and how hip-hop has created some innovative approaches to solving some of these issues around the country. One of the things I want to say is, you know, there's an African proverb, I think it's Ghanaian, that says that it is really a curse when parents have to bury their children. And so I think that this crisis is affecting children at a level, young people, at a level that is just unacceptable, and it's an international embarrassment. And so what can we do to change that?
There are situations where schools have taken out conflict mediation programs. We have a program right behind this school that I built in 1994. It's a rope course. Half the people don't even know about that. Like 90% of people don't even know it's there. It's for conflict mediation resolution training. Okay? A major component in reducing violence and major component in creating this kind of unity that we have or should have in how we work with each other. We had to stop using that program because money had to be directed towards testing, reading, writing, math, and those core subject areas, and away from music, away from art, away from foreign language, away from other kind of things that we all know that work. So the problem is more than what we realize. What we're dealing with right now are symptoms of the problem as opposed to the problem itself. Yeah. If we don't love each other, whoever we are and whatever color we are, we're not going to make anything happen. But we have to first come together with more situations like this, because this is great. And unfortunately, I got to leave because I got some other kids waiting for me that I'm dealing with right now as well in another location. But we got to have more of these and more honest conversation. And again, I really appreciate those visitors who come because they ain't brought nothing but the truth.
With discipline, we want to change behavior.
Right.
We want to modify behavior, not punish people. You know, we're not in the business of punishing people, but we want to correct behavior. So when we put kids, we give them a chance, get a chance to get it together. Give them a chance to correct the behavior, give them a chance to mitigate. So we're not just putting them out, and we don't subscribe to that, not here. But if you do, you know, if you do something very violent or something with, you know, substances or something, we have to address that because we have to consider the safety of everybody in this building. But we're not just going to put them out without giving them an opportunity to get it right. So I just had to say that. Thank you.
But the people with the problems don't come to the meetings. that's a problem.
Right.
And I think that the disenfranchisement takes place is because in this city we have come to do things in sort of a backwards way. We've spent unaccountable amount of money on intervention and no prevention.
Right.
That's the truth of the matter.
Right.
And I can understand that because intervention speaks to making money. Intervention speaks to large infrastructures with bosses at the top. Prevention does not speak to that.
Right.
Prevention talks to grassroots. It talks about knocking on doors. It talks about police officers walking in school buildings during lunchtimes, talking to children. We're talking about the chalk line. You say, well, who killed them? Well, the kids don't want to talk to you because you don't talk to them. And so that means that during your day when you ain't in the donut shop or talking to somebody who ain't talking about nothing no way, you could probably be in the school talking to some kid and forming a relationship with those kids. And it will be relationship because relationship is cool because Dayton Public School is predicated upon the 3 R's, rigorous, relevancy, and relationship. We know you can't be rigorous with nobody in no aspect of life if you don't have a relationship with them, not even the police department. And so I think that we have to go back and look at what we've done. What we've made a mess is what we've done. We're spending all this time and money trying to save some people who don't want to be saved. The Bible is clear. It said, cast not your pearl among swine, even in your own neighborhood.
Took the conversation back to the table in terms of talking with those who have been most affected. We looked at young men primarily who are in Dayton, who have attempted to re-enter the community after being a part of the legal system because of their involvement in either gangs or gang violence or association with that culture. And we really asked them, what are the most effective benefit? What are those services in the community that have been most effective in terms of making you want to change your life? And of course, most of these young men spoke about those things that make all of us want to change. Our children, maturity, understanding better, coming of age in terms of realizing that lifestyle only leads to ending in a couple of different ways. And so now, what SERVE is doing is taking a lot of these young men who have been a part of the problem and making them a part of the solution by engaging them in the conversation as well as engaging them in the work of pulling the community together to make a change. Because the community has to be involved in that change. It's not just something that we can do with any one aspect. So that's why SERVE is such an important tool, because it's a collaboration. Much like this, today, this is a collaboration involving hip-hop artists, Right State, Sochi, liberal arts, the police, HRC, and lots of other entities that come together to solve an issue. Then SERVE brings together our legal teams, brings together our law enforcement, welfare systems, the community, street advocates, street soldiers, and brings together all of that and comes together and says, what can we do to provide a solution to the issues that are facing our community?
Okay.
I'm a 2011 alumni of Thurgood Marshall. I attend The Ohio State University, where I'm a public health major. I'm the type of person, I'm very modest, I'm very humble. I don't like to put myself in the forefront. I go to school of 55,000 undergraduates, where it's 3,500 black undergraduates. So I'm the 5%. So, when you go to school, it's a struggle, because every day, I see my counterparts, they come in pajamas. No, I'm coming in my best, because I want you to know that I'm here to work. I don't have to tell you that I'm here on a scholarship. I don't have to talk about that, but if you ask me, I will tell you. I can't tell you anything about loans, but I can tell you about being a Gates Scholar. And I came from a rough neighborhood. I graduated from Thurgood Marshall. I'm proud to say most of my classmates, most of my friends, we attended a university. But we had parents. My mother's here with me. She works in Thurgood Marshall. My mom was up here every day. It was my senior year. You get senioritis, you smell yourself a little bit. My mom came up here like, no, you're going to chill. You're going to get that diploma, and you're going to act like you got some sense, because that's how I raised you. So we got to make sure, our parents stay involved, know what's going on with your kids. And then you have to also embrace the community and embrace the school districts, because they can't address all the problems. Some of the stuff does start at home, and that's one of the things I'm so thankful for is that I didn't have a dad, but I had a mom who was a dad and who cared and who was always on me. I had educators like Ms. Gorin. She was my teacher, and now she's the principal. I was able to work with Mr. Mims, who had to leave, and I had support from the school district around me. So you can't always just view it as negative. I had a lot of opportunities that are only available to students in public schools. It's universities who come in to Thurgood Marshall and Dayton public schools just because they want public schools there. They don't go to catering with some programs. So you have to realize that it's opportunities. You just have to take advantage of them, and you have to present yourself well. I'm not saying that everything that happens in the black community and with the police is right, but sometimes as black people, as young black people, we forget that we have to always present ourselves up to par. We have to be on point. So you have to, you always have to be aware of your surroundings, who you are and what you represent, and know that there are stereotypes out here against you every day, but you have to prove to them that you're not on that. You're above that. And that's what I stand to be. That's what I want these ladies who will be alumni soon, just as myself, stand to be. And that's what they teach you here at Thurgood Marshall to be. So I just had to speak on that for the young people.